Hello, I'm Stephen Bull. I'm a writer and I'm a senior lecturer in photography at the University of Brighton. And I've also been writing for Source magazine since 1996, which at the time of recording is 25 years. And it's been a great pleasure writing for Source magazine for 25 years. It's also been a great pleasure reading and looking at the magazine over those years. And so when Source asked me to select 12 portfolios of work or pieces of writing from those 25 years, it was really fascinating to look back over all those back issues. I knew there was a reason why I kept them. So it was very difficult to make a selection of 12 pieces of work. My original shortlist was a very long list of about 50 pieces of work, but I did eventually get it down to 12 pieces of work, 6 pieces of writing and 6 portfolios of photographs. So the first piece is a portfolio of photographs that first appeared in the very first issue of Source magazine that I ever saw, this issue here from late 1995, which was given to me on Brighton Station by one of the editors, Patrick McCoy. And the work itself is by Patrick McCoy. It appeared in this issue, and then some more of the work appeared a few years later in this issue of Source magazine, including on the cover there. And these are photographs made either from prints or negatives found on the streets of Belfast in the early to mid 1990s. The second selection is a portfolio of photographs by Martina Mullaney, which actually was a Source commission. And it's a series called Dinner for One, which could be a lament or could be a celebration of eating as a single person. Then there's a piece of writing by Joachim Schmid, perhaps better known as an artist using found photography. And it's a piece of writing from the late 1990s where Schmid talks about what he sees as the problems with European photography magazines at the time and what he wants to see in photography magazines. And what he wants to see in photography magazines sounds remarkably like the contents of Source magazine. So then there's a couple of pieces of writing by John Taylor in this issue of Source from 2001, where Taylor reflects upon the media coverage of 9/11 and the aftermath of how that was represented in newspapers and magazines. And it's something which can relate to all kinds of other significant events and how those are covered by the media. Then there's a piece from this issue of Source magazine, a portfolio of photographs by Keith Arnatt called I Wonder Whether Cows Wonder. And it's very much to do with consciousness and how photography might relate to that. Then on the front here we see an image from my next selection, which is a piece of work by Doug Ross called The Arrivals Kew, and these are photographs made of the plants in Kew Gardens in London and how that might relate to colonial history. And also we see planes flying above the gardens, and so that also then connects with international air travel. So it's a very interesting piece of work, and the photographs look great too. When Source first asked me to select pieces of writing, pretty much the first thing I thought of was this great piece of writing called Summer of Love, a photograph by Tony Ray-Jones, a piece of writing by Ian Walker, where he looks at this particular photograph by Tony Ray-Jones in detail, analyses it in detail, and it really makes you look at the photograph anew and consider the work of Tony Ray-Jones anew as well. And I think it's one of the best pieces of writing I've ever seen on photography. This is a portfolio of work about photography, actually about cameras, photographs by Mervyn Arthur, and they are the insides of cameras, so what goes on in that mysterious chamber of the camera. Then there's some writing here by Judith Williamson. Judith Williamson wrote a series of articles about advertising, about photographs used in advertising for many years in Source magazine. and they're all fascinating. Really difficult to select an individual one, but I've gone for this piece of writing where Williamson writes about an advert for Facebook. But I do recommend all of these amazing pieces of writing analysing photographic adverts by Williamson. Then there's a piece of writing here by David Bate called The Nature of Facts, reflecting on how photography might or might not relate to an idea of truth, and how that might or might not be relevant in an era of quote-unquote post-truth. Nature has a number of different meanings, and the next piece is a piece of writing by Dorothea Born called Nature Gone Wild, which is to do with how climate change is represented photographically, and how it might be more useful to make direct connections between human culture and nature. And then the final selection is a piece of work called Igbo Women by Adieze Ihebom, which is a really fascinating performative piece of work where the artist performs various roles in the pictures, various people in the pictures, and it's about the past, it's about the present, and maybe it's about the future as well. A really fascinating piece of work from a very recent issue of Source. So Source has a great history, but it also continues to publish really fascinating portfolios of work and really fascinating writing. So I recommend looking back over the history of Source magazine, and I hope you find my selections interesting, but I also recommend looking at what Source is doing now and what Source will be doing in the future. So all the best, and I hope you enjoy my selections. Cheerio for now.